The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited the neutral world below. Inside, 7 alien species sat in judgment, and they were not pleased. Dae-jung stood at the center of the chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Nothing fancy or decorated. Around him, holographic displays showed maps of space, highlighting human colonies in red. There were many red dots. Too many, according to the aliens watching him. 300 years, the Vrexian commander said, his voice rumbling through the translation system. Kael'thor Prime was massive, even for his species, with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. 300 years since your kind learned to travel between stars. Yet you have claimed 47 worlds. Dae-jung kept his face neutral. Beside him, Yuna shifted slightly. She was his military attaché, and he knew she was counting exits and measuring distances, as she always did. Old habits from her years as a ship captain. We have colonized uninhabited worlds, Dae-jung said calmly. We have broken no treaties. You expand too quickly, another voice said. This one belonged to Ambassador Threnix of the Osari Collective. The Osari were old, perhaps the oldest species in the council. Threnix looked like a collection of crystalline structures held together by light. Too aggressively. You are young, impulsive, dangerous. Dae-jung wanted to laugh at that, but he kept his expression smooth. If only they knew how wrong they were about humanity being young. The council has reached a decision, Kael'thor Prime announced. He gestured, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed human space, surrounded by council fleets. You will halt all expansion immediately. You will submit to galactic oversight. You will reduce your military forces by 60%. You will allow council inspectors on all human worlds. And if we refuse? Yuna asked. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the chamber. Then the council will take corrective action, Kael'thor Prime said. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been a smile. Your species is brave, but foolish. We have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. We have fleets that dwarf yours. We have weapons you cannot imagine. You are children playing with ships. You barely understand. Dae-jung took a slow breath. The Vrexian was right about one thing. Humanity's current fleet was small compared to the Council's armadas. The ships they had built over the past 3 centuries were functional but simple. Basic fusion drives, standard energy shields, conventional weapons. Nothing impressive. I request time to consult with my government, Dae-jung said. The council members looked at each other. Some made sounds that translated as laughter. Of course, Threnix said, his crystal body pulsing with light. We are not unreasonable. You may have 72 hours to discuss this with Earth. But understand, Ambassador, this is not a negotiation. These are terms. Accept them, or face the consequences. Dae-jung bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that cost him nothing. 72 hours. Thank you, honored council. He turned and walked toward the exit, Yuna falling into step beside him. The chamber doors slid open, and they entered the corridor that led to the docking bay. Neither of them spoke until they were inside their ship, a small courier vessel called the Morning Light. They have no idea, Yuna said, as she settled into the pilot's seat. Her fingers danced across the controls, beginning the departure sequence. They actually think we're weak. They think we're young, Dae-jung corrected. He moved to the communications station and began composing a message. They think we stumbled onto faster-than-light travel by accident 300 years ago. They think we're primitives who got lucky. Should we tell them the truth? Not yet. Dae-jung finished typing and looked at the single word on the screen. He transmitted the message on a channel that didn't officially exist, using encryption that predated human recorded history. The message was simple. Just one word. But it would change everything. Awaken. The reply came back almost instantly. Just 2 words. Yuna guided the ship away from the council station, accelerating toward the edge of the system where they could safely engage their faster-than-light drive. Through the viewport, Daejung could see other ships, council vessels from a dozen different species, all of them confident in their superiority. "Do you think they'll actually attack us?" Yuna asked. "Yes," Daejung said. Kael'thor Prime wants war. He thinks it will be easy. A quick demonstration of power to put the upstart humans in their place. He's going to be surprised. The whole galaxy is going to be surprised. They jumped to faster-than-light travel, and the council station disappeared behind them. Daejung leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. In 72 hours, everything would change. Secrets that humanity had kept for thousands of years would be revealed. The careful illusion of weakness and youth that Earth had maintained would shatter. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, in trenches so deep that no light had ever touched them, ancient machines were waking up. Facilities that had been dormant for millennia were receiving power for the first time in recorded history. Massive doors, each one large enough to swallow cities, began to unlock. On Mars, beneath the largest volcano in the solar system, similar awakenings were occurring. In the asteroid belt, hidden among the rocks and ice, automated systems responded to the call. At the edge of the solar system, where no human ship had visited in centuries, defense platforms older than civilization itself began to activate their weapon systems. And in the deep places, where humanity had hidden its greatest shame and its greatest achievement, the warships waited. They had been waiting for 8,000 years, maintained by systems that never forgot, protected by guardians who never spoke of what they protected. The ships were older than empires. Older than the species that now threatened humanity. They represented a time when humanity had been different, when they had been powerful and terrible, and had nearly destroyed themselves. Now, because the galaxy had left them no choice, those ancient warships would fly again. Daejung opened his eyes and looked at Yuna. "Send a message to Earth. Tell President G1 that we're coming home. Tell her the Council wants submission or war." "What do you think she'll choose?" Daejung smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I think she'll choose to show them what humanity really is. And I think the galaxy will never be the same." The elevator descended for 20 minutes. President G1 stood perfectly still as the numbers on the display climbed higher and higher. 10 kilometers, 20, 30. Finally, at 42 kilometers beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, the elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a corridor that shouldn't exist. The walls were made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The air was cool and dry, maintained by systems that had been running since before the pyramids were built. Fleet Admiral Taemin was waiting for her. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him stood Subin, the historical custodian. She was younger than G1 expected, maybe 40, with short black hair and the kind of intense stare that suggested she knew secrets that would break most people. "Madam President," Taemin said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for coming. The Council has given us 3 days to surrender," G1 said. "Tell me we have options." "Follow me," Subin said. She turned and walked down the corridor. "What I'm about to show you is the truth. The real truth. Most of humanity doesn't know it. Most of humanity can't know it, because knowing changes everything." They walked through corridors that twisted deeper into the earth. Finally, they reached a massive door, covered in symbols that predated any known writing system. Subin placed her hand on a panel, and the door opened silently. The room beyond was enormous. Holographic displays filled the air, showing images and text in languages that had been dead for millennia. In the center of the room stood a pillar of light, and within that light, information flowed like water. "This is the Deep Archive," Subin said, "one of 7 that exist around the solar system. This is where we keep the truth about humanity's past." G1 stepped forward, staring at the displays. She saw images of ships, Massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity currently built. She saw cities that floated in space, stations that could house millions. She saw weapons that made her blood run cold. We didn't discover faster than light travel 300 years ago, Subin said quietly. We rediscovered it. Humanity has been traveling the stars for over 12,000 years. The words hung in the air. G1 felt her world shift. 12,000 years, she repeated. But our recorded history only goes back 5,000 years. Our civilization is only 3,000 years old. Our current civilization, Taemin corrected. But not our first. Not even our second. Subin gestured, and the holographic displays changed. Now they showed battles. Fleets of ships destroying each other. Planets burning. Stars being extinguished. 8,000 years ago, humanity fought a war, Subin said. We don't know what started it. The records from that time are incomplete. But we know how it ended. Humanity nearly destroyed itself. Not just our civilization. Our entire species. We came within a few thousand individuals of extinction. G1 watched the images play out. The scale of destruction was incomprehensible. Entire solar systems reduced to debris. Weapons that could tear apart planets. Ships that could move through space in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics. The survivors made a choice, Subin continued. They could try to rebuild their advanced civilization, knowing that it would eventually lead to another war. Or they could start over. Completely over. They chose to hide the technology, seal away the warships, erase the records. Let humanity begin again, fresh, without the burden of knowing what we had done to ourselves. But someone had to remember, G1 said. Someone had to maintain the systems. The custodians, Subin said, nodding. A bloodline, chosen to guard the truth. To maintain the sealed facilities. To watch and wait, generation after generation, until either humanity matured enough to handle the truth, or until we needed the ancient weapons again. Taemin stepped forward. The Council's ultimatum changes everything. If we submit, we lose our sovereignty. We become subjects of species that have no idea what we really are. If we refuse with only our current fleet, they'll crush us. They have the numbers and the technology. But we have the ancient fleet, G1 said. Yes. Subin waved her hand, and the display changed again. Now it showed schematics of ships, dreadnoughts the size of cities, carriers that could launch thousands of fighters, destroyers with weapons that could crack moons. We have 273 capital ships in various sealed facilities. We have thousands of smaller vessels. We have defense platforms and automated weapons systems. We have technology that makes our current ships look like toys. And they all still work? They were built to last forever, Subin said. Maintained by automated systems that have never failed. We've been testing them periodically for the past 1,000 years, making sure they could be activated if needed. They're ready. G1 walked closer to the displays, studying the ships. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering. She could see the care that had gone into their construction, the genius of their design. Why did we hide this? She asked. Why pretend to be weak? Because we learned the cost of being strong, Subin said. Her voice was heavy with emotion. When humanity embraced its capacity for war, when we built these ships and weapons, we became monsters. We nearly ended ourselves. The survivors understood that power without wisdom is suicide. They chose to start over, to let humanity grow slowly, to give us time to mature as a species before we wielded this kind of power again. And now the galaxy has forced our hand, Taemin said. The Council sees us as weak children who need to be controlled. If we reveal the truth, if we show them what humanity really is, everything changes. G1 was silent for a long moment. She thought about the weight of this decision. Revealing the ancient fleet would shatter humanity's carefully maintained image. It would tell the galaxy that humans had lied for centuries. It would make other species fear them, maybe even hate them. But submission was impossible. Humanity had not spent 12,000 years growing and learning just to become subjects of younger species who thought they knew better. Bring them online, G1 said. All of them. But we do this carefully. We demonstrate our capability without firing a shot if possible. We show the Council that attacking us would be suicide, but we don't start a war. And if they attack anyway? Taemin asked. Then we show them why humanity survived when so many other species didn't. We show them that we're not weak children. We're the descendants of a civilization that conquered stars and chose peace. Subin nodded and began entering commands into the control systems. Around the room, displays lit up as ancient facilities across the solar system received their activation codes. It's starting, she said. The awakening. Within 48 hours, every sealed facility will be online. The fleet will be ready to deploy. G1 watched the displays, her heart heavy. She thought about the ancient humans who had made the choice to hide all of this. They had wanted peace. They had wanted humanity to have a chance to grow without the shadow of their terrible past. I'm sorry, G1 whispered to those long-dead ancestors. We tried to honor your choice, but the galaxy won't let us stay hidden. On the main display, an image appeared. A ship rising from the depths of the Indian Ocean, shedding 8,000 years of concealment. The Eternal Dawn, humanity's oldest surviving dreadnought, breaching the surface for the first time since the ancient wars ended. It was beautiful and terrible. A reminder of what humanity had been and what they might become again. The awakening had begun. The Eternal Dawn broke through the surface of the Indian Ocean like a mountain rising from the deep. Water cascaded off its hull, thousands of tons falling back into the sea. The ship was enormous, 3 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. Its surface, covered in that same dark metal that seemed to drink the light. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge, and he felt very small. The bridge alone was larger than most modern warships. Holographic displays filled the air, showing systems that he barely understood despite years of study. The ship was alive with power, humming with energy that had been contained for 8 millennia. All systems online, reported Hyun, the chief engineer. She looked overwhelmed, her hands moving across control panels that had last been touched before human written history began. Fusion cores at 90%. Weapon systems charged. Shield generators ready. Navigation systems calibrated. Admiral, this ship is ready to fly. Then let's fly, Taemin said. The Eternal Dawn rose into the sky, water streaming from its hull. Across Earth, people stopped what they were doing to stare. The ship was visible for thousands of kilometers, a dark shape against the blue sky, moving with impossible grace for something so massive. But the Eternal Dawn was just the beginning. On Mars, beneath Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, massive doors opened. They had been hidden so well that human colonists had walked past them for 2 centuries without noticing. Now they revealed a hangar carved into the heart of the mountain. The carrier Horizon's End emerged first. It was even larger than the Eternal Dawn, designed to carry and support hundreds of smaller ships. Following it came 6 escort cruisers, each one bristling with weapons. Commander Song-hee stood on the bridge of the Horizon's End, recently awakened from stasis. She had been placed in suspended animation 6,000 years ago, a volunteer who had chosen to sleep until humanity needed its ancient warriors again. Now, looking at the displays showing Mars's human colonies, she felt like a ghost returned from the dead. The colonies look so small, she said quietly. When I went to sleep, Mars had cities with millions of people. The ancient cities are buried under the dust. Hyun's voice came through the communication system. She was coordinating the awakening from Earth. When the survivors started over, they let the old world die. What you're seeing now is new Mars, built by people who didn't know about old Mars. Are they afraid? Sung-hee asked. The colonists. Are they afraid of us? Some are. Most are confused. But they'll understand soon enough. In the asteroid belt, hidden facilities were coming online. What appeared to be ordinary asteroids began to split open, revealing shipyards that had been dormant for millennia. Automated systems that had maintained themselves for 8,000 years began producing fuel and ammunition for the awakening fleet. Captain Mayung sat in her destroyer, the Vigilant, and watched ancient warships emerge from hiding. Her ship was modern, built just 20 years ago using humanity's current technology. It had seemed powerful when she first took command. Now, watching a single ancient destroyer dwarf her entire vessel, she understood how far humanity had fallen before they started climbing back up. "This is insane," her weapons officer muttered. "Those ships are older than our entire civilization, and they still work better than anything we've built," Myung said. She opened a channel to the nearest ancient vessel, the destroyer Shadow's Reach. "This is Captain Myung of the Vigilant. Welcome back to active service." The response came from an artificial intelligence that had been waiting in silence for 8,000 years. "Acknowledged, Captain Myung. Shadow's Reach is operational and ready for orders. It is good to serve humanity again." Myung felt a chill run down her spine. The ancient ships had artificial intelligence. Not simple computers, but actual thinking machines that could make decisions and hold conversations. Modern humanity had abandoned artificial intelligence research after too many near disasters. But the ancient humans had mastered it. "How many of you are there?" Myung asked. "How many ancient ships?" "In this sector, 27 dreadnoughts, 43 cruisers, 89 destroyers, and 12 carriers." The artificial intelligence responded. "Across human space, the fleet numbers 273 capital ships and over 3,000 support vessels. We are the Silent Fleet, and we have been waiting." Mayung tried to comprehend those numbers. The entire modern human fleet had maybe 200 ships total, most of them small. The ancient fleet had more capital ships than humanity currently had vessels of any size. "The galaxy is going to lose its mind," her weapons officer said. "That's the idea," Myung replied. At the edge of the solar system, defense platforms were activating. They had been disguised as natural formations, icy bodies that blended in with the outer system's debris. Now, they revealed their true nature. Each platform was armed with weapons designed to defend against threats that no longer existed. Fleets from ancient wars that had been dust for thousands of years. Engineer Nari had been sent to inspect one of the platforms. She floated in her spacesuit, staring at technology that seemed like magic. The weapons systems used principles that modern physics said were impossible. The power generation was so efficient that it seemed to violate thermodynamics. The materials were substances that humanity had forgotten how to make. "How did we do this?" she whispered. "How did ancient humans build things we can't even understand now?" "They had 12,000 years of advancement," Hyun's voice came through her helmet. "They built on the work of generations. They pushed science to its limits. And then they threw it all away because they nearly destroyed themselves with it." "Do you think we're ready to have this power back?" Nari asked. There was a long pause before Hyun answered. "I don't know. But the Council isn't giving us a choice. It's this or submission. President Ji-won chose to show our strength. Admiral Tae-min was coordinating the assembly of the combined fleet. Modern ships and ancient vessels working together. The contrast was stark. The modern ships looked crude and simple next to their ancient counterparts, but they represented 300 years of slow, careful rebuilding. They were humanity's proof that they could advance without destroying themselves. "All vessels, this is Admiral Tae-min," he broadcast to the growing fleet. "I know this is overwhelming. I know many of you are frightened or confused. 3 days ago, most of you didn't know these ancient ships existed. Now you're serving alongside them. But remember what we're doing. We're not starting a war. We're preventing one. We're showing the Council that humanity is not weak, that we deserve respect and sovereignty." Captain Myung listened to the Admiral's words and felt her fear gradually transform into pride. Yes, the ancient ships were terrifying. Yes, they represented a dark chapter in humanity's history. But they also represented human ingenuity, human determination, human strength. The fleet continued to assemble. More ships emerged from hiding every hour. From Earth, from Mars, from the asteroids, from hidden bases scattered across the solar system. The silent fleet was waking up, and with it, humanity's true power was being revealed. Sang-hee stood on the bridge of the horizon's end and looked at the displays showing the growing armada. When I went to sleep, humanity was destroying itself. I volunteered to sleep until we were needed again because I believed humanity could be better. That we could learn from our mistakes. Did we? We learned. Taemin's voice came through the communication channel. We learned that power without wisdom is death. We learned that conquest leads to ruin. We learned to choose peace. But we also learned that sometimes, to keep peace, you must be strong enough that no one dares break it. In the Council's space, intelligence networks were detecting massive energy signatures from human territory. Analysts struggled to make sense of what they were seeing. Ships appearing on sensors that shouldn't exist. Power levels that exceeded anything they thought humanity was capable of. Movement patterns that suggested technology far beyond what Earth was supposed to have. Kael'thor Prime received the reports in his war room aboard the Vrexian flagship. He read them 3 times, certain there must be an error. These readings are impossible, he said. Humans don't have this kind of technology. The readings are confirmed, sir, his intelligence officer replied. Multiple sources, multiple sensor systems, all showing the same thing. Humanity is activating some kind of hidden fleet. Ships of unknown design and capability. Kael'thor Prime's mandibles clicked together nervously. How many ships? Current estimate is over 300 capital ships, with thousands of support vessels, and the numbers are still growing. The Vrexian commander felt something unfamiliar. The Epsilon Drift was empty space between stars. A region where no planets orbited and no asteroids floated. It was the perfect place for a demonstration. Nothing to hide behind. No obstacles. Just empty void where everyone could see clearly. The Council's observer fleet arrived first. 12 ships, representing the most advanced military technology the galaxy had to offer. Kael'thor Prime commanded from his flagship a massive dreadnought called the Fist of Justice. Beside him stood Ambassador Threnix, his crystalline body pulsing with nervous light. I still believe this is unnecessary, Threnix said. The humans have asked for this demonstration to prove they deserve respect. But we could simply grant them more time, more diplomacy. They've had 300 years, Kael'thor Prime replied. They've proven themselves aggressive and expansionist. This demonstration will show us the limits of their capability. And then we can proceed with corrective action, knowing exactly what we face. On the observation deck, representatives from all 7 Council species watched the displays. Some were curious. Some were bored. Most expected to see an embarrassing display of human desperation. Maybe some new weapon that might be impressive but would ultimately prove insufficient against Council superiority. Then humanity's fleet arrived. They didn't enter normal space the way modern ships did. With the usual burst of energy and gravitational distortion. One moment the space was empty. The next moment, 8 enormous vessels simply existed, as if they had always been there, and everyone had just failed to notice them. The Council's sensors went wild, trying to analyze what they had just witnessed. The energy signatures were wrong. The spatial displacement was wrong. Everything about these ships violated known physics. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, looking at the display showing the Council ships. They looked so small from here, like children's toys floating in the dark. Ambassador Daejung, you have the floor, Taemin said. Daejung stood in the Council observation station, watching through the massive viewports as the ancient human ships hung in space. He opened a broadcast channel that would be heard by everyone present and recorded for transmission to every Council world. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began. "Thank you for agreeing to witness this demonstration. What you are about to see will change your understanding of humanity. It will reveal truths we have kept hidden for thousands of years. We do this not out of pride, but out of necessity. You have forced us to show you what we really are." Kael'thor Prime leaned forward in his command chair. "Very dramatic, Ambassador. Now show us these supposedly impressive weapons of yours." "As you wish," Daejung said. "Admiral Taemin, begin the demonstration." The Eternal Dawn activated its defensive shields. The Council's sensors registered the energy signature and then immediately flagged it as an error. The readings couldn't be correct. No shield could generate that much power. No defensive system could create that kind of spatial distortion. But the readings weren't wrong. The shield was a bubble of altered space around the ship, a region where the laws of physics had been gently adjusted. Any weapon fired at the Eternal Dawn would simply cease to exist as it crossed the boundary, its energy redistributed harmlessly into empty space. "This is impossible," one of the Council scientists muttered. "They're manipulating space-time itself." "Defensive systems demonstrated," Taemin announced. "Now, maneuverability." The Eternal Dawn moved. A ship 3 kilometers long simply accelerated to speeds that should have torn it apart. It performed turns that should have been impossible for something so massive. It danced through space like a fighter. Not a capital ship. Its movements, precise and graceful. The Council observers watched in stunned silence. Ships that size weren't supposed to move like that. The forces involved should have crushed the crew. The structural stress should have torn the hull apart. "They have gravity manipulation technology," Threnix said quietly. "Inside the ship, they're creating their own gravitational field. The crew feels no acceleration at all. We abandoned research into gravity manipulation centuries ago," another Council member said. "The math indicated it was impossible." "Apparently the ancient humans had better math," Threnix replied. The demonstration continued. All 8 ancient ships performed maneuvers that showcased their capabilities. They moved in perfect formation, executed turns that defied physics, demonstrated speeds that made modern faster-than-light drives look slow. Then Taemin spoke again. "Weapon systems demonstration. I want to be clear that we will not fire any weapons today. We will simply demonstrate our targeting capability. Taemin system. Taemin system. Taemin system. Taemin system." Warning alarms began screaming throughout the Council fleet. Every ship detected that it had been locked onto by targeting systems. Multiple targeting systems. Dozens of them, from distances that should have been beyond sensor range, let alone firing range. Kael'thor Prime stared at his displays in disbelief. "They've locked weapons on us? All of us? Simultaneously?" "Yes, sir," his weapons officer replied, voice shaking. "Each of our ships has been targeted by an average of 17 different weapon systems. The targeting locks are perfect. If they fired, we would have no time to respond." "How far away are they?" 3 million kilometers, sir." Kael'thor Prime felt his blood run cold. 3 million kilometers was 5 times the effective range of Council weapons. The humans could destroy the entire observer fleet before a single Council ship could fire back. "That's not all, sir," the sensor officer added. "I'm detecting new energy signatures. Many new signatures. Ships entering the area." The Council observers rushed to the viewports. What they saw made several species feel fear for the first time in their lives. The silent fleet had arrived. Not 8 ships. Not 20. Hundreds of ancient warships, emerging from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts the size of cities, carriers that could launch thousands of fighters, cruisers and destroyers in numbers too great to count quickly, and behind them, thousands of smaller vessels. Support ships, supply vessels, repair platforms, an entire fleet infrastructure that had been hidden and waiting for 8,000 years. "By the ancient lights," Threnix whispered. "How many ships do they have?" "Current count is 473 capital ships, a council analyst reported, with over 3,000 support vessels. And sensors indicate there are more arriving. Dae-jung's voice came over the broadcast channel again. What you are witnessing, honored council, is the truth about humanity. Our current civilization is 3,000 years old. Our recorded history spans 5,000 years. But humanity's true civilization is over 12,000 years old. We have been traveling the stars since before your oldest species built their first cities. He paused, letting that sink in. The ships you see before you are not new. They are ancient. The newest of them was built 6,000 years ago. The oldest, the Eternal Dawn, is over 8,000 years old. They represent technology from a time when humanity was powerful and terrible. Kael'thor Prime wanted to speak, to object, to deny what he was hearing. But the evidence was right in front of him. Ships that shouldn't exist. Technology that was supposed to be impossible. A fleet that could sweep aside the combined military forces of the entire Galactic Council. 8,000 years ago, humanity fought a war. Dae-jung continued. We nearly destroyed ourselves. The survivors made a choice. They sealed away our advanced technology. They hid our warships. They erased our records and started over, building a new civilization that would hopefully be wiser than the old one. You lied to us, Kael'thor Prime said, his voice heavy with shock and anger. For 300 years, you pretended to be weak. You let us treat you as children, as newcomers who needed guidance, all while hiding this. Yes, Dae-jung replied simply. We lied. Because we learned what happens when humanity embraces its capacity for war. We chose peace. We chose to forget. We chose to let our technology sleep and our weapons rust while we grew as a species, slowly and carefully, without the burden of knowing what we had once been. Then why reveal it now? Threnix asked. Why wake your ancient fleet? Because you forced us to, Dae-jung said, and now his voice carried an edge. Because you threatened us with submission or war. Because you saw our choice of peace as weakness. Because you would not allow us the dignity of sovereignty. So now you know the truth. We are not weak. We are not children. We are the descendants of a civilization that conquered stars, and we have chosen not to conquer again. But that choice was ours to make, not yours to impose. The council chamber was silent. Ships that were older than empires hung in space, silent proof of everything Dae-jung had said. So what happens now? Kael'thor Prime asked quietly. Now, Dae-jung said, we talk. As equals. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so tense. 7 species sat in judgment. But now they were the ones being judged. President G1 stood at the center of the chamber, and behind her, through the massive viewports, the Eternal Dawn floated in space like a dark monument to humanity's hidden past. For 3 days, the Council had been in chaos. Some species demanded immediate war, arguing that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Others advocated for peace at any cost, terrified of what the ancient human war machine could do if fully activated. Old alliances were fracturing, new ones were forming. The Council was tearing itself apart. We have debated for 3 days, Threnix said, his crystalline body dim with exhaustion. And still we cannot agree. Some say we must destroy humanity before they destroy us. Others say we must submit to their demands. I say, we must find a third path. There is no third path. Kael'thor Prime snarled. They lied to us. They hid weapons that could destroy civilizations. They pretended to be weak while plotting against us. We plotted nothing, G1 said calmly. We simply existed. We colonized uninhabited worlds. We traded peacefully. We broke no laws and violated no treaties. You are angry because we did not volunteer to be weak, because we did not offer ourselves up for your control. You are dangerous. Of course we are dangerous, G1 replied. Every spacefaring civilization is dangerous. You have weapons that can crack planets. You have fleets that can burn worlds. The only difference is that our weapons are older and more effective. But danger does not equal malice. We do not want to conquer you. We do not want to rule you. We simply want to exist on our own terms. She gestured to the eternal dawn outside the viewport. That ship is 8,000 years old. It has been sleeping in Earth's oceans since before your civilizations built their first starships. We could have awakened it at any time. We could have revealed our strength centuries ago. We chose to let you believe we were young and weak because we thought that would lead to less conflict, not more. And now? Another council member asked. What do you want now? Partnership. G1 said. We propose a new arrangement. Humanity will not submit to council oversight. We are sovereign, as you are, but we will join the council as full members with equal status. We will contribute to mutual defense. We will share some of our technology, carefully and slowly, to help all species advance. We will work together as equals. You expect us to accept this after you lied to us? Kael'thor Prime demanded. I expect you to accept reality, G1 replied. You cannot force us to submit. Your fleets cannot match our ancient vessels. You could try to destroy us, but the cost would be the destruction of your own civilizations. War with humanity would leave everyone weaker, vulnerable to threats you cannot even imagine yet. She paused, then continued in a softer tone. Or you can accept us as partners. Learn from our history. Let us share what we have learned about the dangers of unchecked power. We have lived through the consequences of building weapons we could barely control. We can help you avoid making the same mistakes. Threnix pulsed with light, a sign of deep thought among the Osari. I have something to share, he said. Information that may change this debate. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared at the center of the chamber. It showed ancient records, text in a language so old that even the translation systems struggled with it. These are Osari records from 8,000 years ago, Threnix explained. They speak of a powerful civilization that suddenly vanished from the stars, a species that had mastered faster than light travel and built great fleets. We always assumed this civilization had destroyed itself in war, as so many species do. Now I realize we were partially right. They did fight a terrible war, but they did not destroy themselves. They chose to survive by forgetting. They chose peace over power. The chamber was silent as the council members absorbed this information. The Osari were the oldest species in the galaxy. If their records confirmed humanity's story, then it had to be true. You are the lost civilization, Threnix said, turning to G1. The ones our ancestors wondered about. The ones who vanished at the height of their power. Yes, G1 confirmed. We are what remains of that civilization. We are their descendants, carrying the burden of their choices. Over the next hours, the debate continued. But slowly, gradually, the tone shifted. Fear remained, but it was joined by something else. Respect, curiosity, even a kind of hope. If humanity could pull back from the brink of self-destruction, if they could choose peace over conquest, then maybe there was hope for all species. Maybe power didn't have to corrupt. Maybe strength could be used for protection rather than domination. The vote came on the fourth day. Not unanimous, but by sufficient majority. The council accepted humanity's proposal. Humanity would join as a full member, with equal status. No submission. No oversight. Just partnership between sovereign species. Kael'thor Prime voted against it, along with 3 other species. As the vote concluded, he stood and pointed at G1. This is a mistake. You have shown weakness by accepting them as equals. Mark my words. This decision will doom us all. Noted, Threnix replied coolly. Your objection is recorded. But the decision is made. In the weeks that followed, humanity began integrating with the galactic community in a new way. The ancient ships remained visible, a reminder of humanity's true capability. But they didn't threaten or intimidate. Instead, they patrolled trade routes, protected colony worlds, and stood ready to defend the Council against external threats. Commander Yuna took command of one of the ancient cruisers, the Pathfinder, and began training a new generation of officers. She taught them not just how to operate the ancient systems, but why those systems had been hidden, why power had to be balanced with wisdom. Captain Mayung continued commanding the Vigilant, but now she worked alongside ancient vessels instead of feeling dwarfed by them. She discovered that the modern ships had advantages too. They were easier to maintain, simpler to repair, and represented humanity's ability to advance without losing itself. Engineer Nari led a project to gradually reintroduce ancient technology to modern human society. Not all at once, which could be destabilizing, but carefully and thoughtfully. Each advancement was studied, debated, and implemented only when society was ready for it. Commander Sang He, awakened from 8,000 years of sleep, found purpose in teaching history. She spoke to students about the ancient wars, about what happened when civilization prioritized power over everything else. Her words carried weight because she had lived through it. Hyun worked on documenting everything. The ancient systems, the sealed facilities, the technology that had been hidden. She wanted to make sure humanity would never lose this knowledge again, but she also wanted to make sure future generations understood why it had been hidden in the first place. President Ji-won and Ambassador Dae-jung became humanity's voice in the Council. They negotiated treaties, resolved disputes, and slowly built trust with species that had once threatened them. It wasn't easy. Many species still feared humanity. But fear could become respect with time and effort. Admiral Taemin kept the fleet ready. The ancient ships were awake now, and they would not sleep again. But he made sure they were used for protection, not intimidation. For defense, not conquest. He wanted the galaxy to see humanity's strength as a shield, not a sword. One evening, Ji-won and Su-bin stood in the deep archive, looking at the historical records. The images of ancient wars and destroyed worlds played across the displays. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Su-bin asked. "Revealing everything. We didn't have a choice," Ji-won replied. "The Council forced our hand. But maybe it's better this way. Maybe humanity has hidden for long enough. Maybe we're finally mature enough to carry the weight of our history." "I hope so," Su-bin said quietly. "Because we can't hide again. The galaxy knows what we are now. We have to live with that truth. But peace, even hard-won peace, is never guaranteed." In the shadows of the Vrexian Empire, Kael'thor Prime met with representatives from the species that had voted against humanity's membership. They gathered in secret, away from Council oversight, to discuss what they saw as a threat to galactic order. "The Council has made a catastrophic mistake," Kael'thor Prime said. "They have accepted a species that hid its true nature for centuries. A species with weapons that could destroy us all. A species that chose to lie, rather than be honest." "What do you propose?" another representative asked. "War," Kael'thor Prime said simply. "But not open war. Not yet. First, we gather allies. We build coalitions. We prepare. And when the time is right, we strike. Before humanity can fully awaken all of their ancient weapons, before they become too powerful to stop." The conspirators agreed, unaware that their meeting was being monitored. The Shadow's Reach, one of humanity's ancient stealth vessels, hung in orbit just outside sensor range. Its artificial intelligence recorded every word, using stealth technology that was millennia beyond anything the Council possessed. The recording was transmitted to Admiral Taemin, who listened with a heavy heart. He had hoped that demonstrating humanity's strength would prevent war, not plant the seeds for a future one. He contacted Dae-jung through a secure channel. "We have a problem. Kael'thor Prime and others are planning something. They're not accepting the Council's decision. They're preparing for war." Daejung was silent for a long moment. We'll have to watch them. Prepare countermeasures. Make sure they can't act without us knowing. Is this ever going to end? Taemin asked. Will we ever have real peace? Peace isn't something you achieve once and keep forever, Daejung replied. It's something you work for constantly. We tried to bury our past and hide from our nature. Now we have to live with both. We have to be strong enough to defend ourselves, but wise enough not to become what we once were. And if Kael'thor Prime forces our hand, if he starts a war, then we end it quickly, Daejung said. But we don't become conquerors. We don't let war change us into monsters again. That's the real test. Not whether we can win, but whether we can win without losing ourselves. Admiral Taemin looked out at the fleet, at the ancient ships and modern vessels working together. They represented humanity's past and present, its power and its restraint, its capability and its choice. We tried to forget, he said quietly. Now we have to remember while staying human. Yes, Daejung agreed. That's the burden we carry now. The burden of knowing what we are and choosing to be better. The conversation ended, and Taemin returned to his duties. The fleet continued its patrols. The galaxy continued turning, and humanity, finally revealed in its truth, continued its ancient struggle to balance strength with wisdom, power with peace, capability with restraint. The warships were older than empires, but the challenge they represented was eternal. Not the challenge of building weapons, but the challenge of knowing when not to use them.